Hey everybody, Thais Sky here. Welcome to Reclaim, my podcast. I'm so honored that you are tuning in and listening. What are we? Week 7, week 8 of the quarantine. It feels like we've been in this for a long time, and it feels also like we have no idea when it's going to end. And with uncertainty comes a lot of insecurity, doesn't it? It feels like a really tumultuous time. I know I'm right there with y'all. This episode is not about this. I want to talk today about inner child work. In fact, I received an amazing question from a listener about inner child work that I think will resonate with many of you. And so let me do a little intro thing and then get into the question. Welcome to Reclaim, a podcast for women, by women, on conversations that matter. I am your host, Thais Sky, international speaker, teacher, and a certified life coach currently working to become a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California. Join me here every week as I offer thoughts and interviews on what it means to reclaim your humanness in this messy world. Okay, well, first, actually, before I get into this question and talk about inner child, I have some announcements to make. Lots of really exciting things are happening over here. Ever since I graduated from my master's program, I have found more time to dive back into my business, which I've been missing and wanting to do for 2 years now. And with all of that comes some really exciting changes. First change is that Worthy Women Rise is going to become a year-long program. As you may know, Worthy Women Rise is my signature group program. It started as a 3-month program, and then it became 4, and then 5. And I've been lengthening it for 2 reasons. One, I've been getting so much feedback from participants that they want more time with the content and with the group. And 2, I've always loved doing long-term work. In fact, I've worked with therapists for years and years and years because I feel that so much of the healing work that we're craving, the type of deep, inner, lasting transformation that we're seeking, requires a longer relationship. And so in the process of becoming really unapologetic about the fact that I want to be working with people longer, I really had to sit with if I want Worthy Women Rise to continue to be a 5-month program or maybe extend to 9 months. And it just feels right to make it a 12-month program. I have 13 modules in the program, and it breaks down perfectly, pretty much 1 module a month, except for 2 modules in 1 month. And it just feels right. Really excited to expand this container and allow women to really have so much space and time to unpack each module and to get support in the process. So the core elements of Worthy Women Rise, including the weekly coaching calls and the monthly sisterhood circles, haven't changed, aren't changing. That's the crux of the program, really, is that every week you have an opportunity to be in community and get support from me around whatever is coming up in your life. I mean, to get a year-long support of that is everything. So if you are interested in joining Worthy Women Rise, doors are kind of officially open. I'm accepting applications for the fall cohort. The doors will be officially open, and we'll do our worthiness season celebration in August. But we will start with this cohort August 30th, and applications are open. So you can go to worthywomenrise.com and apply and give yourself some time to prepare before we start at the end of August. And then we will go until August of 2021. I'm really excited to expand this to a 1-year container. This is, I think, going to be just the perfect length of time to really give ourselves the space to feel nourished and supported and seen and heard in all of our messy selves so that we can reclaim our worth in a radical way. So that's number 1 announcement. Again, you can go to worthywomenrise.com if you want to learn more about the program, if you want to get info on the prices, and if you want to learn what type of content I will be teaching, and if you want to apply, go there. Okay, second thing that's happening is I am writing an ebook. I am writing an ebook on the worthiness wound. It's going to be called Reclaiming Worth, 5 Radical Thoughts for Getting Out of Your Worthiness Wound and Into Your Power. I have been wanting to create a a PDF that encompasses the big elements of the worthiness wound for those of you who are not just auditory learners, but also visual learners. I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. I am so excited about this. That's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. But if you want to make sure that you get it the minute it comes out, you can go to my website, taissky.com, and you can sign up on the website so that when the book comes out, you will be the first to know. The cool thing about the book is that it's also going to be a workbook. There's going to be some questions in there to guide you in healing and tending to and unpacking your worthiness wound in a really meaningful way. So go to taissky.com to sign up for that. You can also obviously go to the show notes. Okay, last announcement. I've been working really hard behind the scenes for this, but I officially have a new website. Oh my gosh, if you know anything about me, love creating new websites. I've created so many iterations of my websites over the past year, but because I went to grad school, my website had to stay as it was, which is really good for me. And once I finished grad school, it was time for a facelift. I wanted new copy. I wanted new words to really match the work that I'm doing in the world. And this website is now that. It is a reflection of who I am in the world, the work that I'm doing. I'm really excited about it. You can go to taissky.com to check it out. I got new colors, new fonts. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So go to my website, go sign up for the ebook. And if you're interested in Worthy Women Rise, you can go to worthywomenrise.com and learn more. I think that's it. I think those are all of the announcements. Lots of really exciting announcements, right? Okay. So let's get into the question that I received from a listener. Here is the question. I am a longtime listener of your podcast, Reclaim. I absolutely love it and found myself hooked from the beginning. I immediately felt as though you were speaking my inner dialogue and thoughts, especially resonating with the topics of spirituality, inner growth, and social relationships. Amazing. Thank you for that. The question continues. Today, during my meditation, I came to the realization that I think I have been coddling my inner child. For the past couple of years, I've been trying to do inner child work, but I find that I have been tending to the needs of my inner child in a way that may not be positive for my growth. In trying to avoid what seems to stir up anxiety, dread, and the overall fear response, I have simplified my life and taken it easier on myself. However, now I feel as though I'm holding myself back by overly comforting my inner child and not striving towards my full potential. I was wondering if you've encountered this before and have any advice. I love my inner child and I'm very good at listening to what she has to say, but I don't want to fall to the extreme of letting her steer my life. How do you create the balance between honoring your inner child without feeling internally stuck by your scared inner child? This is an amazing question. I love it so much because I think it really adds nuance to this idea of inner child work. Now, for those of you who may be completely new to inner child work, essentially the concept is that we all have a scared inner child within us, or frozen inner child from a point in time when we did not have the coping skills, the coping strategies to integrate and understand what was happening in our lives. So if we had a really traumatic event, it doesn't have to be even really, if we had a traumatic event or something scary that happened in our lives and we didn't feel like we had the right support system, what we ended up doing is having that part of our psyche be frozen in time. And now that inner child tends to run the show. One of the ways I like to teach about this inner child work is whenever you feel like you are having like a really big emotional reaction to something that feels a little bit unnerving to you, like it doesn't make sense why you're reacting to the extent that you're reacting, odds are it's your inner child. And so doing inner child work is really incredible because it's a tool that allows us to give to ourselves what we didn't get. We may not have gotten the right support system. We may not have gotten the right attunement. We may not have gotten the right love and validation that we needed as a child, the right protection. But now as adults, we have the ability to give that to ourselves. We get to support her when she's scared. We get to heal her, tend to her, nurture her, support her. In this way, we unhook our parents from having to do that. Because even though we're adults, I know that many of us, myself included, I've done a lot of work on this, continue to hook my parents, expecting them to be my parents, expecting them to give me what they've never given me and are not capable of giving me. And so part of inner child work is remothering ourselves, is being the mother, the caretaker, caregiver that we did not have, so that we can then grow emotionally. That part of us that's frozen in time can thaw, and we can react and respond to life with a greater sense of emotional maturity or emotional intelligence. Okay, so that's like a really quick synopsis on inner child work. I have a meditation on my website, actually. If you go to ThaisSky.com, you can buy this meditation where I guide you into yourself and guide you into developing a relationship with your inner child. So that may be useful for you. Okay, so where do I want to start with this question? I think one of the things that initially jumped out at me as I was reading this question is that how we do anything tends to be how we do everything. We bring all of our complexity into everything we do. And so even when it comes to self-healing, like doing our own healing work, right? Like we're not using somebody else. We're not like being with a therapist or with a coach or a teacher. If we're doing our own work, if we're journaling and meditating, there's so much beauty and power in that, like just tremendous. I mean, it's everything. Self-healing is everything. It's a really critical component of healing work is our own healing work, right? And if we come from a place where, let's say, we're really hard on ourselves, or we're perfectionistic, or we're people pleasers, right? If we have these kind of characteristics, these personality traits, odds are we're going to bring that to our self-healing work as well. So if you're a perfectionist, you consider yourself a perfectionist, odds are when you do your healing work, you're going to bring that to your work. You're going to expect yourself to meditate perfectly and get really discouraged when you don't meditate the way you wanted to. You're going to approach your yoga practice in a way that if you don't get the poses correctly, you become very hard on yourself, right? That's what I'm saying. We bring all of our ways of being into our work. And so if you have experienced in the past a sense of being really scared and not being a risk taker, and you learned that taking risks could be punished, that making mistakes were punishable, that putting yourself out there would lead to bad things happening, then of course you're going to bring that into your self-healing work, even work of the inner child. The inner child work is a tool. It's like a hammer, right? It's sometimes more effective to use a hammer than a wrench. It's sometimes more effective to use this tool than other tools, but the hand that is hammering is still you. So you're still going to be bringing yourself into these tools. And that's why part of a really important component of healing is to have accountability and support, to have someone who is able to reflect to you that maybe this is going on. Because we can't see our own blind spots. We don't know what we don't know. Getting support to guide us and show us what we're missing, how we may be using the hammer in the way that is perpetuating the underlying beliefs can be helpful. It's not everything, but it can be really helpful. Okay, so that was my first thought, is that we want to be very gentle with ourselves when we find ourselves using self-healing tools in ways that perpetuate our own harm, our own hurt. Of course we are. Of course that's what's happening. Can we be really gentle and kind to ourselves when we notice that that's happening? So for you, what do I want to call you, listener, that's asking this question? How about fear of coddling? So for you, fear of coddling, it may be really a shock to you to have realized that maybe you're keeping yourself from growing because of the way you've been relating to your inner child. So when you made this realization, I hope that you've been really kind to yourself in this journey, because it is really, really hard. And so that's beautiful that you were able to have this realization come up for you during meditation. It sounds like your meditation practice is really supporting you and grounding you to have these insights that are so that goes so much against what we know about ourselves. Okay, so be gentle with yourself. Always number one. Okay, let's see, what else do I have here? One thing that I want to also name is that, in our culture, a question that continually comes up is it coddling or is it caring? Like, at what point are we taking care of ourselves, and at what point are we absconding self-responsibility? I mean, this is the conversation I had with Sasha just an episode ago of like, why is it that when we say like be gentle with ourselves and be compassionate with ourselves, we also have to give context to that and say that doesn't mean don't take self-responsibility. We kind of see it as like a continuum, right? Where on the one hand, you're coddling yourself and not letting yourself grow. And on the other hand, you're caring for yourself and you're taking self-responsibility. I personally don't like looking at it as a continuum because it continues to perpetuate this binary that caring for yourself means that, or self-care or choosing self means that you're not taking responsibility. I actually find that within love, the definition of love comes accountability, responsibility, self-care, right? Love in and of itself means that you do not allow abuse, that you have boundaries. That is inherent in love. But because our culture tends to think of love as getting away with anything, getting away with murder type of thing, then we believe that maybe we need to be hard on ourselves. And that's how we justify needing to be hard on ourselves, is that if we're not hard on ourselves, then we're really gonna just become lazy and unproductive and not get anything done. This entire narrative perpetuates this idea that we are our own worst enemy. And I don't like that narrative. I don't like this idea. I actually really don't even like the idea of self-sabotage that much, because it doesn't resonate with me that we are purposely trying to fail ourselves. I don't think that's true. I think the human spirit is tremendously resourceful and wants to grow. Your inner child wants to grow up. Your inner child wants to be what we see as like a thriving child. And if you look, like if you go to a playground, obviously not now because of quarantine, but if you go to a playground, if you watch kids play, you'll see that the kids that are really secure in themselves are actually the ones that are most adventurous. There's the ones that are able to go further away from, their caretakers. They're able to take responsibility without it threatening their sense of self. They're able to play and be in kindness and in caring of other children. They're the ones who are most secure in themselves are not the bullies, right? The bullies are actually the ones that are really insecure, and they're not the ones that are like really afraid of things. So sure, children can experience fear. Fear is a normal biological response. But they have the type of support and protection around them that when they attend to their fears, they don't let fear consume them and paralyze them and stop them from trying new things. That is very much an adult function, a protective function. So, with this question, the fact that you're feeling like your inner child is actually preventing you from growth, that's an important exploration of, are you believing that your inner child is only one trait of fear, whereas the inner child is actually a full complex little human within us that has all of the experiences, right? So they have fear, but they also have joy. And when we do inner child work, we're not only accessing the parts of us that are afraid, but we're also accessing the parts of us that are joyful. And so what we're doing with inner child work is we're fortifying that security. We're cultivating a sense of inner safety versus outer safety. So outer safety is an illusion, and that's what we're really experiencing with this quarantine for many of us. Not all, but many of us in this pandemic, we're really forced to face the fact that certainty, security, job security, income security, all of that is actually not secure, because being human is inherently unsafe. At any moment in time, an earthquake, a hurricane can come and wipe people away. Disease can wipe people away. We are not invincible. We are human. We have death. Death is a part of our culture. The only security actually is the knowledge that death is inevitable. Everything else is insecure. We cultivate a capacity to deal with the insecure nature of the world by having caregivers that taught us safety within. By safety, I mean that they taught us that all of our emotions are valid. They taught us how to soothe ourselves. They taught us how to regulate. They taught us how to be there for ourselves. When we feel safe within ourselves, whatever happens on the outside has less of an impact. Not saying a complete lack of impact, because we are, of course, interconnected. Of course, we live in systems. And because of that, we will always be affected by those around us. But there's a less of an emphasis, a less of a need to have the outer world be a certain way in order for us to be happy. So ideally, in childhood, what we got were caregivers that were able to teach us inner security. With that inner security comes this sense that no matter how I feel, I'll be okay. My feelings aren't going to kill me, right? I'm allowed to feel the variety of the human experience, and that's okay. And by cultivating that emotional intelligence, we know how to land within our bodies. We don't need to abandon ourselves. However, if we didn't get that type of attunement as a child, the way that we try to maintain safety is by demanding that people be a certain way, by having high expectations, by controlling, and a variety of other techniques, by not putting ourselves out there, by not growing, by living in fear. These are all ways that we attempt to manage and regulate the place within us that was never taught it was okay to exist. So, the more we cultivate inner security, the less we demand it outside of us. Inner security does not mean that we always feel safe. For example, if you are about to be robbed, inner security doesn't mean that you're not experiencing fear. We are connected to the systems around us. You are connected to circumstance. You are connected to what happens to you. Inner security simply means that there is after the event, the crisis, the trauma happens, there's a sense of, I know how to handle this. Like, I know how to take care of myself. I know how to reach for support. I know how to get my needs met. I know how to go to the people who will support me and help me and care for me. That is inner security. That's what we're cultivating by developing a relationship with our inner child. Not believing that we need to keep things the same in order for us to be safe, right? And that's what I'm hearing in this question, is that I avoid things because I avoid stirring up anxiety, dread, and the overall fear response. Avoiding those things is not the answer to healing, right? Trying to heal by avoiding bad things is not the answer. We see this in more acute trauma, such as in veterans who come back from wars, and people who are experiencing PTSD. Part of healing PTSD is exposure therapy, is putting yourself in a similar situation, of course, not the same or not in the same trauma response, but in same situations, and teaching the body that you are safe now, that it is not the same, so that the vets no longer hear like a car backfire and go into a response of I'm, being bombed. Okay, exposure therapy is an important part of the work of re-regulating our nervous system, not avoiding any loud things. The more that we avoid stimulus that causes us anxiety, the more anxiety we actually build. Fear becomes bigger than the thing that we fear itself. We cannot diminish our negative feelings, quote unquote, because I don't like the word negative, but I know that you all understand what I mean when I say the word negative, right? We can't try to not stir up any yucky feelings inside of us and expect ourselves to heal and to grow. It just can't happen. The answer then isn't to do that, because then we will live a very narrow existence. And in fact, most of us do that to some extent or another. And so it's important for us to be mindful of, am I learning how to cultivate and expand my capacity to be with anxiety and fear? Or am I shaping my life so that I never experience fear and anxiety? Our inner child isn't dictating to us what to do. We are, the adult is, and we have to take responsibility for that. So if a child is scared, what do we say? If the child is scared of something that's underneath the bed, the monster underneath the bed, what do? That we say, yeah, yeah, there is a monster, so you have to be scared of it, and it's probably good for you to be scared of it for the rest of your life. So the best thing that you can do is to never turn off all the lights. No, right? What do? We tell the child what? That fear is allowed. Of course, things are scary, but that you'll protect them. And maybe even show them that there's nothing underneath the bed. And maybe even guide them to, okay, so when you are afraid, what are you going to do? How are you going to take care of yourself? Right? Same thing can happen here as adults. You're afraid to go after a promotion. There's a part of you that's really afraid because you're afraid of rejection. Name that, honor it, give it space to be there, give it a space to exist, comfort that place within you, and then do the thing anyway. You are allowed to experience fear. Fear is a human experience. There's nothing wrong with fear. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Care for yourself, care for the parts of you that are afraid, and then do that thing anyway. Getting uncomfortable is a really incredible and important part of the healing journey. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to make sure that I address here. Yeah, we don't want to let the inner child have the driver's seat, right? We are the adults. We have the driver's seat. The child can share, we wanted to give it space for it to share how it's feeling, how it's doing, and how it's experiencing the world. But we don't want to be catering our lives to the fears of a 5-year-old, because the 5-year-old doesn't actually know what to be afraid of. And so a really great thing that I like to do, that my therapist introduced to me a long time ago, and I like to do it, is when my inner child is afraid, to catch her up. She's frozen in time. She believes that you are 5 years old, right? So catch her up on what's been happening since you were 5 years old. So whenever I'm really afraid of the next step, and I notice that it's her being afraid of something new, like let's say rejection, I can say, since, that first rejection that really, really scared you, I've been rejected so many times. Look, I got broken up by this person. I didn't get this opportunity. This didn't work out. And look here. Look how good I am. I've managed to get through all of those moments of rejection stronger than ever. Rejection does not define us. Whatever rejection we get, we'll be okay. I'm here and I'll take care of you. It's okay to get rejected. And look at all these times that I've been rejected and I'm still okay. Right? So we catch her up. We let her know that actually we're 30 years old. We're no longer 5. And that rejection's not going to kill us this time around, as much as it felt like it did that back then. We have a lot more power and autonomy now to respond differently if we want to. Catching her up is a way to practice also reminding yourself and deepening and rooting into the fact that you're not a child. You are an adult. And it's really, really beautiful to remember our adultness. And one final thought that I have, I do this in Worthy Women Rise as well, is I also teach about the inner wise woman. We have the inner child, yes. We also have an inner wise woman. We have our elder, who we will be in our 60s and 70s and 80s. We have that within us. We have our future self that is wise and whole and healed and loved. Like, we have that part of us too. We can tap into her as well. So we can, be tender to our inner child, but also tap into the deep reserve and resilience that we have, that we are so much more than we think we are. We are powerful beyond measure. And anything that we truly want in this world, we can root in that possibility that it is ours. It is ours. It is here. Because it's not out there. Our fullness isn't here. And we get to claim that over and over and over again. So I hope that supports you, listener, and all of you who are doing the inner child work. Keep doing it. It's brilliant, beautiful, amazing work. It's also work I teach in Worthy Women Rise. If you're interested, you can go to Worthy Women Rise and learn more about that. But I'm hopeful that the tools that I shared with you today will be able to take you into a more nuanced approach about your inner child. Because remember, our inner child is a part of us, but it is not all of us. And we don't want any part of ourselves to be dictating all of who we are. All right, I will see you all next week. Thank you for listening to Reclaim the Podcast. This podcast represents the opinions of Thais Sky and her guests to the show. The content of this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional psychological, psychiatric, or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental disorder.